every generation usually has some sort of connection to the previous generation. In my case, my link to my father's generation is actually a hard-nosed detective named Dick Tracy. Who's Dick Tracy? Why, he's the detective that's going to bring law and order to the streets of the city. For such a memorable character, it goes to follow that he had an NES game. Unfortunately, that game, meant for kids, is actually pretty difficult. And that's why we're going to play Dick Tracy on the NES until we win. I'm not going to lie to you. The only reason this game is difficult is because it has issues. Lots of game-killing issues. First and foremost are the controls. This game controls horribly. In the overhead map, the car only follows a suggested path. You don't directly control the car. It's hard to explain, but basically when you press right, the car will go to the right, but only after getting in the correct lane. Essentially, Tracy follows traffic laws, which is kind of unheard of in almost every video game ever made. Next are the controls in the side-scrolling stages. The controls here are so rigid that you think Dick Tracy has a metal pole stuck in his back. While moving is far and away better in this game than the likes of Dragon's Lair, there's just something about moving Tracy around that doesn't feel right. That brings us to hit detection, which actually isn't too bad. In fact, the hit detection is almost unfairly balanced in your favor. For example, in some cases, you can get up close to a guy shooting at you, and if you punch him anywhere, even on his hands as he's pulling out his gun, he's gonna get knocked out. Of course, the hit detection isn't without its flaws. Shooting the gun has some serious deficiencies. Specifically, furniture can block your shots. This makes some portions of the game downright brutal. Finally, the overworld snipers. The goddamn snipers. What hellhole of a city does Dick Tracy live in that there are snipers on almost every rooftop dedicated to killing him? God, I hate those snipers. Alright, so the game has some problems. But how do you get around those problems and stay alive? Well, here are my tips for beating Dick Tracy. First, let's deal with the snipers. If you just drive around the city without taking out the snipers, you're really never going to get through the game. The only way to deal with these guys is to move around carefully, keeping an eye out for them. Once you spot one, get out of the car and shoot him down. Yeah, I know this sucks, but it's the only way you're going to stay alive. But look on the bright side, once you've killed all the snipers, you never have to kill them again, because the game remembers which snipers you've killed. Well, up until you die. Once you have to enter a password, you're going to have to go around killing all the snipers again. There are 2 brown cars in the driving section, and they both follow a set pattern. If you run into them, you'll take damage. There's nothing you can do about these cars other than wait for them to move out of the way, so be patient and don't take damage. You really only should use your first aid kits when you have 1 point of health. Anything else and you'll just waste the kit. In the side-scrolling stages, watch out for open windows. People will try to kill Tracy by throwing safes out of them. Never shoot an unarmed man. If you do, you're going to take a full point of damage. Even if he's trying to punch the living hell out of you, don't shoot him. Tear gas is very rare to come by, but it's very useful against rats. And I hate those damn rats. If you ever run out of ammunition, return to a police station to replenish your ammo. Now there's one trick I haven't spoken about yet, and that's the ability to kill the gunmen before they appear on screen. Well, almost before they appear on screen. You see, once you see the outline of a gunman on the left edge or the right edge of the screen, you can actually shoot them and they'll never fire a shot back. Now in the later levels this comes in handy, and if you've already memorized where all the gunmen are, it's really not that big of a deal, but it may be considered cheating. In some small way. See, here's the thing. Back in the day, we didn't have these fancy LCD monitors acting as TV screens. We had something called CRT, cathode ray tubes. These worked by shooting a bunch of electrons at the screen from behind. While it worked relatively well, the biggest problem was that the manufacturing process would introduce overscan. Upwards of 20% of the picture on either of the 4 sides would never be seen by the viewer. Overscan was so prevalent in TV manufacturing that the NTSC standard was actually adjusted to allow for it, and the FCC required that visual station identifiers must be placed in a location that allows for that 20% overscan. Fast forward to the NES era, and we learn that programmers are tricky guys. You see, the NES barely allowed enough memory to draw on the full NTSC screen. That meant that visual data couldn't be kept out of frame. Programmers simply couldn't afford it. So they used the 20% overscan area as sort of a spare memory location. So when we play these classic games on an emulator, we're not actually getting the full experience. We're actually seeing the full screen, which is not what the developers anticipated. So in order to play the game with a full experience, we have to either emulate Overscan, or we have to wait for the enemies to fully pop up on screen. And that's where this game gets really difficult, almost impossible, because that means the gunmen will be firing at you, and some of these gunners fire so rapidly that you simply cannot get off a shot without taking damage. So what does all of this boil down to? Well, basically, I've chosen to kill the enemies before they hit that 20% overscan. I know some of you may take issue with this, saying it's not the purest way to play, but you guys can kiss my ass, because this game is hard enough without taking advantage of that. Well, I try to kill the enemies before they hit that 20% overscan. Of course, sometimes furniture gets in the way. Alright, let's talk about how to get around in this game. Every time you start a new case, you start off at first in A. From left to right, the city blocks increase in numbers from 1 to 9, and from bottom to top, the city blocks increase in letters from A to J. At least that's the general idea. You see, you may think you're at 3rd and H, but the game actually places that location a full block forward. In fact, if you go from the 3rd and H building to the right, to where you'd expect the 4th and H building to be, you'd actually find the 4th and I building. And if you go from the 2nd and F to 7th, you'd expect to be at 7th and F, but you're not. You're at 7th and E. Basically, if you keep track of what block you're on in your head, you'll only have a general idea of where you actually are. Let me tell you, as a New Yorker, I find that very confusing. So, I've actually got a bit of a problem here. You see, every case follows the exact same pattern from here on out. You get a case via your wrist radio, you go to the initial suspect's location, follow that suspect's lead to another location, shoot at a blue car and get information from the driver, go to another location, get another clue, keep getting clues until you get all 5 of them, arrest the guilty criminal. So the problem here is, I can't really talk about the main game without boring everyone to death. So I guess we could talk strategy. I mean, unless you really want me to tell you what blocks to go to. I don't think you want me to do that. So let's talk strategy. There are a few different enemies in this game that you'll run across. The regular thugs are pretty easy to deal with. All you need to do is punch them and they'll go down. Thugs with guns are a bit more difficult because they fire their guns at you, obviously. But you can either jump over or duck under the bullets, fire back, and move on. Now from there, the enemies sort of build upon those two basic configurations. You either have thugs that punch or thugs that shoot. The thugs that punch are rather straightforward. The only difference between these guys is how hard they hit you and how many hits they take before they go down. The thugs with guns, however, can be a bit of a problem. While early on the gunners shoot rather slowly, later on in the game they get access to Tommy guns, and that's going to make your life difficult. Gunners follow several basic patterns. Slow fire, these guys are easy to take out and shouldn't pose any problems. Quick fire, a little tougher to take out but still shouldn't pose too much of a problem. And rapid fire. These guys fire Tommy guns and they're nearly impossible to get by until you learn their secret. You can take them out at an angle. It's hard not to get hit, but if you're careful, you can do it. Other than that, there are dogs and rats in this game, but they're only found in a couple of stages, so you really don't need to worry about them. Alright guys, I've got to come clean with you. I mean, I've run out of things to say. This game is just not interesting at all. I mean, it's difficult, yeah, but it's bland as hell. I mean, you do the same thing over and over and over again. Alright, so you talk to the initial suspect, you go through some platforming levels, you shoot a blue car, go through some more platforming levels, and then you arrest the suspect. That's it. It's the whole game. I mean, it's not exciting. It's the exact same thing. I mean, aside from a few jumps and maybe a few times getting shot in the ass by a sneaky little guy with a gun, there's just not much to talk about. I mean, I can't even talk about the cases. Oh yeah, the cases in this game, because, I mean, they would just insult your intelligence. The clues are so obvious and so specific that a 2-year-old can get them. Aside from the times when they give you like stupid hints, like footprints found in a puddle of green ink. Oh, really? You found footprints of green ink? What does that mean? Where do I go? Well, you don't go anywhere. You know what happens when you leave the stage? A blue car pops up and you gotta shoot it. So the one time it's vague and you think you have to figure something out, you really don't, because the game throws a blue car at you. I mean, it's just nothing to talk about. Actually, there is something we can talk about. Here's one level that takes the cake. One level in this game that's going to kick your ass over and over and over again. Yeah, you're gonna die. A lot. The first thing you'll want to do is grab the Tommy gun that's hidden at the top of the stairs. The first obstacle you run into is this barrage of freaking bullets. Check this out. You've got a guy firing a Tommy gun up top and 2 guys firing handguns at you. It makes a kill zone that's almost impossible to avoid. So what do? Well, you absolutely must take out the guy with the Tommy gun. Then you can crawl forward and take out the 2 gunners. Why do you have to take out the guy with a Tommy gun? Because as soon as you move forward, you'll run smack dab into another guy with a Tommy gun. Trust me, you do not want 2 of these guys on screen. So you need to slowly make your way forward, dealing with the Tommy guns as soon as you can, and taking out the other gunners in a slow, methodical manner. After that gauntlet, you'll need to take out a thug without using your gun. From there, move forward and shoot down the camping asshole in the window before he shoots you. Keep moving forward and take out another camper in the 3rd window. After that, a gunner and a thug should show up. If you avoid the gunner, he'll continue to walk off screen and you can take out the thug with your fists or some tear gas. When you reach the stairs, go up and move forward a bit until the next gunner is visible, and take him out. Another thug will also appear. Take him out with your fists. Go down the stairs and move forward until you see 2 gunners. Take both of them out with a couple of bullets. When you walk forward, be careful of the window. Not 1, not 2, but 3 safes will fall from it. If you're careful, you can avoid the trap, otherwise you're going to take a good amount of damage. Your next challenge is 3 gunners on 3 levels. 2 guys with Tommy guns on the upper levels and 1 regular gunner on the lower level. Take the middle gunner out with a jump shot, then move forward and deal with the other 2. Moving forward, you'll run into a regular thug, which you can just take out with your fists or some tear gas, and then a gunner. If you move forward quickly enough, you can avoid the gunner's shots and take him out with an angled shot. After that, a really fast thug will show up. He'll take some finagling to take down, but just keep punching and he'll eventually get knocked out. Next is a set of 3 gunners on the upper platform. You should be able to move forward and take all of these 3 guys out without too many problems. Afterwards, there's another thug you need to take out with your fists, and again, not a big problem. And then it's time to face Big Boy, who apparently has decided to go out in a blue suede suit. This guy's a problem. He fires really fast, and you're gonna need exceptional timing to take him out. And I mean very exceptional timing. Your best bet is to run in and get a quick shot off before you have to duck. From there, you need to pop up and shoot Big Boy between rounds. Yeah, it's not easy. Aside from the timing you'll need, there's also one hell of a bug here as well. The last shot that hits Big Boy will count as you shooting an unarmed man, so if you're low on life, you're screwed. After you shoot Big Boy enough, he'll run forward and try to punch you. Just beat him into the ground with your fists. Once you've beaten Big Boy's brains around, you'll get an option to interrogate or arrest. Whatever you do, and I mean whatever you do, make sure you do not interrogate him. Dear God, don't interrogate him. You do not want to go through that level again. Arrest Big Boy and you'll get to witness a really horrific ending. Although I'll give it credit for actually wrapping up the story rather than just spitting a game over screen in our faces, still, it's pretty bland. Oh man, this game really made me hate anyone that wears a banana yellow raincoat. At least I don't have to play another detective game on the NES ever again. Wait a minute, that game's not even difficult enough for Until We Win.